Hi everyone, welcome first of all, and I'll go ahead and share my screen. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Brooke Phillips and I'm part of the marketing team here at RISC Networks. And if I can just pull this up. So we'll go ahead and get started as people trickle in. But today we're going to talk about Cedar. It's our Q2 release in the RISC Networks product, as you can see by the logos down at the bottom. I'm sure some of you have heard that we were recently acquired by Flexera, and I'll let Zane Whitner speak to that in just a moment. So like I said, we have Zane Whitner, who's our VP of Product Development. A lot of you probably know him as he's been at RISC for about 5 years, I believe. Worked a couple of different positions, and so a lot of you have probably had the chance to speak with him. We also have Lauren Hackler, one of our awesome customer success managers, and she's going to talk right at the end and let you guys know a little bit more about what customer success does and how she can help you guys. So today we're going to walk through what's now available in the platform as of our Cedar release. We're going to intro you to customer success and Lauren's team. We'll do a little Q&A right at the end, and then we'll wrap up. If you have questions throughout, please put them in the chat function, and we'll get to them for sure. So just a bit of housekeeping. Please remember there's people from different companies on the call, and avoid sharing any confidential details. And like I said, at the end of the session, we'll have a Q&A portion to address your questions. If we don't get to those on the air, we will respond to you via email after the broadcast. And with that, I will turn it over to Zane to talk a little bit about what's new with us.
Yeah, thanks, Brooke. That's great. So first, let's talk a little bit about the elephant in the room, right? So I'm sure a lot of you have seen the emails and the announcements around the acquisition, and certainly, change can be a little scary, absolutely. But I'd like to just kind of talk real quickly about, why and what this means for our partner and user base. And a big reason why, we here at RISC Networks had, we had a vision for where our product wanted to go around IT optimization, and how we could work with our partner base to, really create a vision of IT operations that was more automated and more intelligent. And so as we looked at our roadmap and looked at, other partners in the industry, Flexera seemed to be a really good choice to help realize a much broader vision. Being with Flexera allows us to continue kind of independence within the market, and plug into a product suite with things like Optima and RightScale CMP, cloud management platform, that I think, first of all, completes that cloud journey. I'm sure a lot of you on a lot of the calls I've been on always ask, okay, well, after the migration, what do you guys do? And we've had an answer to that, but certainly I think this makes that more compelling, because now we can go from the beginning through the migration to ongoing management and governance of that world. And especially even as we think about the on-premise world, as we think about FlexNet, License Manager, or some of their data platform products, where we're taking application data, bringing in costing information, bringing that up a different level. I think there's really interesting things that are going to be coming out of this partnership over the next year. So I really think our partner and user base is going to get a lot of benefit from this acquisition, just because we're going to have access to deeper data solutions and broader product sets. So I'm particularly excited about it. I mean, I sit in product, so naturally I would be pretty stoked. But really, for everybody else, I mean, nothing really changes. We still have the same people here, and you're going to be working with us to just improve the lives of your team members, your customers. You're not going to find that we're really any different. And so we're just excited about the opportunity this gives us to really create a bigger vision for what IT operations can be. So let's talk a little bit about Cedar. So Brooke, if you can give me access, let me show my screen. There we go. Let's get this pulled up. And so we rolled out a set of about 4 new features for you guys. So things like the Optimization Scorecard, application summary exports, reserved instances, and an enhancement on our geolocation. And so what I want to start with is the Optimization Scorecard. So I'm particularly excited about this feature. This is one we had in as kind of a beta feature in our additional report section for quite some time. And now it's basically been pulled out and modernized into the platform that you're used to. So let's just go over to our demo, and I just want to talk you guys through what we have there. All right, so the scorecard is only available in our Cloudscape modules. So we'll come over here to Add Intelligence, and down here below Cloudscape, we'll have the Migration Scorecard. And we're working on a little name change to this, more around the Optimization Scorecard. As we've kind of gotten into this, we realized that, it has applicability beyond migration. And so we wanted to kind of speak to that a little bit more. And so we tried to build this in a very kind of wizardy walkthrough, so it's very easy to use. So we give a little explanation about what this is, and we're going to say, okay, let's get started. And I'll walk you guys through a very kind of simple scorecard. You see I've kind of created a few here. So let's create a new one, and I'll talk about the standard templates. So over here we have custom templates. So these are ones I've already created and saved. Standard templates. Here's where we're working with our professional services team, other partners in the industry, as well as OEMs like Amazon, Microsoft, Google, to produce standard templates where you can say, okay, well, here is AWS's recommendations for how you should prioritize your portfolio. And so this is really kind of the thing here, right, is, okay, Zane, I have 300 apps in my environment. And I may know what the low-hanging fruit are off the top of my head because I have certain apps that I know people and they're interested in cloud or we have good use cases for. But what happens once I get through that first 5 or 10%? Where do we go to next? And we need some kind of methodology to understand our application portfolio in that way. And so that's what this scorecard represents. Think of it as kind of like a migration plan, or at least a migration priority order, as you think about how to build the actual plan and how you're going to do that, build your waves, things like this. And so we offer a set of categories that you can choose to evaluate for migration. And so what I'll do today is kind of create a simple one where, if I'm thinking about my portfolio, I really want to attack it from kind of, easiest to hardest, from most economical to least economical, to least business impact, to most business impact. I want to build something that's going to be a nice, easy on-ramp. I can cut my teeth on it. If I'm making mistakes early on, that's okay. And so what we'll do here is we'll come in and we'll select things like, okay, predictive cloud run calls. So this is, and I recommend just go to our documentation where we define what each of these criteria mean. And so, hey, I want to prioritize the cheapest apps first. So what's the most economical? I want to prioritize low connectivity. So that's kind of a complexity score. I want to prioritize things with a low number of users. That's how many IPs is that particular stack talking to in a specified location, which we'll get to later. I want devices that are over-provisioned, right? So I've over-provisioned them on site, so I'm not using everything that's available to them. And so, again, this is more of an economics thing where I can kind of right-size them as I move into cloud. I want things with a low number of devices in them because, again, complexity, small storage footprint, we'll put that one down because, again, that's going to be about speed. How quickly can I migrate something and migrate its data? And then we have tags. So tags are particularly special when it comes to building out these scorecards because there is a lot of flexibility and customization you can put into the product and the output of the scorecard through those two choices there. And I'll get into that in a little bit. So I've got my criteria selected. Now I'm going to hit next. And so, okay, for predictive cloud run cost, well, which region do I want to do that analysis on? And let's go, here I can do, and so here you can see just a little preview for forward. I could use 1 year or 3 year reserved instances. Maybe that's what I'm interested in. But for here, we'll just do US East, something simple, and move it on to the next. Low number of users. Okay, so what it's asking is, where are your users located? Because what we're going to do is we're going to count basically every IP that's connecting into your app, every distinct IP as a connection, right? And so that's kind of how many distinct IPs is your app talking to in a specified location. And so we're using IP as kind of a corollary to the user. And so, most of my users are on the internet in this case for my environment. So I'm just going to select that one. Okay, stack tags. And so here what we'll do when we're talking about tags is we're going to select some key value pairs. So each key value pair will be evaluated independently to every other criteria, which will make sense here in a minute. But we're going to put it up this way so we're not showing you every single key value pair available to you. That might be a bit of an overwhelming list. What we want to do is, I'm going to pick department because that's, I know departments who are interested in moving to cloud. I might also pick, let's go with sensitivity. So that's like a custom tag someone's put in. Hopefully nothing crazy there. I don't know what I'm about to see. Excuse me. And so now when I hit next, now we're seeing the values. So here you can see it's concatenated together this key value pairing. And so in my environment, I want to evaluate human resources, not because I want those apps to move to the cloud, but those are specifically apps I don't want moved to the cloud. And so I just want to be sure I'm taking that into account. I know my BI team is really interested in cloud, and I know my engineering team is as well. And then here we can see we have these sensitivity rankings. I might go with, I want to pick an app that has kind of low sensitivity. If it has high sensitivity, I might want to evaluate that as well. And so let's move on to the next. And so here we're going to go through the same process, but on device level tags. So I might do something here like the R-score tag we use, maybe tier, but keep in mind that both stack tags and device tags are completely customizable. So I know lots of folks when they're building scorecards, it may be like on the specific type of database that a server has. And so you could tag all your servers with their different database types. This is a, SQL 2016. This is a, Oracle, and we can weight those differently. So just kind of keep in mind the customization. And so let's go to the next one. And so now what I want to evaluate here is, for ease, I just want to evaluate everything that's a rehost and, maybe a web servers. I might be interested that that's an easier migration for me. So let's go to the next. And so now once I've picked kind of all those criteria, I'm going to land on what I call the soundboard. And so this is a way to use a method called pairwise ranking to help basically weight each category relative to every other category in our scoring. And so you can look at this as like, well, how important is cloud run cost related to low connectivity and so forth and so on as I kind of go down the page. And so what I might do here is, whether something's economical or not, it's kind of, it's important, but it's not, I don't care that much. But like low connectivity, I care a lot about. And so I'm going to max that one out. Low number of users, I also care a lot about. That's complexity, that's business impact. I'm going to be concerned about that. Devices being over provisioned, that's nice, but not a big deal. Low device count, that's how many devices I'm going to have to move. That actually might be important for me to consider. Excuse me. And so then we might go on to small storage footprint, how quickly, let's just jump that up a little bit. If the department is BI, yeah, that's kind of important to me. I might jump that up because I know that that's fairly important as we think about low-hanging fruit. I know that team is really interested. In fact, I might just put my hand on the scale here and say, okay, I can check that box. Let's kind of open this weight up and say, you know what? I'm going to give it 1,000. I want to push any kind of BI app up to the top of the list because I know that team's ready to go, and that's real low-hanging fruit for me. Whereas human resources, you know what? I might do that as like a negative 1,000 because I want to push those down. I don't want to consider anything that's human resources related. In engineering, maybe we'll just kind of jump that. Oops, didn't mean to check that box. We can jump that here. Sensitivity being low, I care about that. Sensitivity being high, again, I might put a, this one's 44, and in this case, I might put negative 44. I want it to be the opposite of low sensitivity. The R scoring, let's just put this, need to check that. Let's go here. And whether it's a web server or not, we can lay that out. So this will be kind of how I'm weighting this environment. I can add any new criteria here as well as delete any existing one if I want to edit it at this point. But now I'm going to go forward and hit calculate. So now I'm going to put the turkey in the oven. This is going to cook for about, say, 2 or 3 minutes here. So while that's going, I'm going to kind of jump over to another feature that we have to talk about that for a minute. And so what I want to talk about is the application summary export. So I've been on a lot of calls and talked to a lot of folks, and I know in enterprise organizations, there's always the need to communicate information effectively. And, we all live in the modern world, and in a lot of the ways that we're going to communicate that information is through, honestly, PowerPoint, some kind of Microsoft Office product. And so we've had a lot of Excel-based reporting from our environment, but we wanted to create something a bit more visual. And we know a lot of our customers are building executive summaries from the data within our platform because it needs to be summarized in some kind of presentable format. And so what you'll have here, when you land on this page up here in the top right is a little button that says download summaries. So let's hit that. And so that's going to say, okay, well, what do you want to export? Stats and visualization, connections, devices, tags. We put a little warning here to kind of keep in mind, however you have your screen laid out is how the export is going to come out. And so I'm going to download that, open this up, give it a second. And so here you have it. So this is a fully editable, so I can enable editing here. Editable PowerPoint, I can change the size of these diagrams. I can mess around with the text, copy, paste, whatever I want. So we're going to have this nice little summary page here. We'll have a high-level view of the connectivity information. We'll also talk about the devices that are in that stack, as well as the tags that belong to that stack. And so we're going to summarize that information up. This could be something where you may be putting, the top 5 applications in your environment into a single presentation. We are working on just improving this page in particular in the future. And we are also working on a utility where you'll be able to export, as many of the application stacks as you want to in one fell swoop instead of one at a time, which is what it is now. A couple things to note about this feature, that it is, if you have a lot of connectivity or a lot of member devices, basically if the amount of data in these tables would exceed 5 slides worth of data, then it won't allow export. And we do that for 2 reasons. One is because, it's possible that can just overrun the memory of the browser and break the export because it's basically unbounded. The other thing is, we just don't want people being murdered with PowerPoint presentations. You know, especially in the unbounded nature of this, you could end up with, you know, 1,000 slide long PowerPoints, and it's like nobody wants that. So we tried to kind of strike a balance here between getting as much data as we could safely into the export without really removing value. I think the other thing to consider, and I'll just show it to you. So like if I make my screen small like this, so what you can see here, and the export will always export what is ever in the visualization, right? So if I zoom in here, I'm going to cut that visualization off there on the right and the bottom. So you can see that. Let's see, where's my button? Oh, lost it. Sorry, guys. Bear with me. There it is. Get it back. All right. Download summary. Open that up. And so you can see here it's clipped the visualization as well as the performance graph is a little bit compressed because that's how my screen looks. So that's just, you know, something to pay attention to. As you use this functionality of the export, it's only going to render what's ever in the browser at the time. But the nice thing here is if you build a layout of the visualization that you like, that's just an easy way to export it. It'll be laid out in the way you want it. And so that's that feature. So I'm going to go back to the scorecard now. Let's just take our turkey out of the oven and see what we've gotten cooked here. And so as you can see within this environment, and the best app to migrate here is, in this case, Tableau. And a big reason for that is, well, it had that 1,000 multiplier I had on it as the department was in BI. And so what I'll really encourage every user of this feature to do is don't pay so much attention to the numbers and pay more attention to the rank. There are two ways that we will calculate our scores here. One is relative, the other is Boolean, so like a true false. And so for things like low connectivity, for instance, I'm going to sort this, and you can see, okay, what are my lowest connected device app stacks in my environment? And so what it's doing here is basically percentile ranking the stacks in this environment. We are then going to multiply that percentile times 100. And then we're going to multiply that product against the weight. And so easy math here, right? If my weight for low connectivity is 100, then the percentile that say maybe my web store is sitting in here is 85.71. So it's in nearly the 86th percentile in my environment in terms of low connectivity. And so this can present some kind of interesting ranking in your environment so you can understand who's the least connected, who's the most connected, how do I explore each of these different categories. And then we might also have things like Department BI, which is just a true false. Does it have that tag? If it does, give it 100 points. And then multiply it times 1,000 in this case. So you can see how some of that is, how the math is kind of working out there. And feel free to play around with this. You can save your template. You can also share it once it's been saved. So you could send that to someone and say, hey, check out my template, you know, log in, go to here. What we can also do, if I kind of come back, I'll just jump to another one I've already kind of completed, the complexity ranking. I can hit load. And that's just going to drop you straight into the scorecard. You don't have to wait for the calculation to go through. And then especially for any of our partners on the call who are interested in, you know, if you get in here, you play with the template, you get it adjusted in the way that you want it, we can propagate that template across your assessment. So then you can say, okay, on every assessment I run, I can come in, I can click my template, and it's going to spit out my scorecard. And so this is really about trying to drive efficiency and agility with our partner and customer base. Because I even think even if you're not a partner, the thing to consider is as well, okay, you have your weights as they are now. If I go back, here's what I cared about when I created this one. But what I also care about now is I'm going to add a new criteria. So let's come back, because low storage footprint isn't important to me. Now I've realized I'm running out of storage and I don't want to buy another V block. And so I need to reprioritize. I need to go back through my list. I'm just going to kind of jump through this to my soundboard and say, you know what? A high storage footprint is super important to me now. And low connectivity isn't important now that I've migrated a few things. I'm more comfortable. And so now I'm going to shuffle the deck again. And so you're able to do that. And so what you have to keep in mind is how this is going to help your agility in planning as you move through waves. As the situation on the ground changes, your planning model can adjust to it. And so I think that that's super exciting as we kind of move forward. And then especially as we integrate into the Optima and the CMP products from Flexera, right? If you're working along this migration route, we can keep cloud cost optimized once things are migrated and managing those cloud environments post-migration, and can keep view to all of that through our scoring and application portfolio rationalization. Okay, so those are two of the kind of bigger features that are in the Cedar release. What I might do now is just stop for a minute and see if there's any questions on the call about either of those features. Brooke, I don't know if you had a poll you wanted to put out. And if there's nothing else, I'm going to move on to geolocation and RI.
Hi, Zane. We don't currently have any questions related to this right now. They're more around the reserved instances, so I would say it's probably a good time for you to go ahead and move into the other features.
Okay, great. So if anybody has any questions they had on the top of their head, please just type them into the chat. Brooke, just jump in and interrupt me, and we can get into them. So for RIs, regrettably, and we're having to kind of update some of our demos to get that data in here. But for any of you who have assessments right now, you just need to go to the IaaS Cloud Pricing page. And so the new regions have been added the new RIs have been added as new regions, which they would be in here, where it would be. Oh no, we do have them. Here we go. Let's see. Guys surprised me. And so here you would just select these as additional regions within the IaaS Cloud Pricing report. And so right now we have AWS 1-year and 3-year reserved instances, as well as Azure 1-year and 3-year, in currently the East US regions only. And the reason we do that is we currently are working on a whole update to this particular module of our platform, but there's been a lot of demand for RIs, a lot of questions about it. And so we wanted to get something out there that you guys could use to start to understand that, but know that we have more coming behind this, a more modern interface, just a better design in general that we're excited about. But I wanted to get something out there to at least whet some appetites, solve that problem, at least in the short term, until we're delivering something much more robust here that will be in our Dogwood release. So yeah, this one's pretty straightforward. So it's just new regions. You can select those. Those will appear elsewhere in the platform in your Evaluate Cost and Resource Requirements page, as well as others.
Zane,
so
I will jump in real quick, if you don't mind. We had a few questions around the scorecard come in after. So I would just want to maybe go back to that real quick. Someone is asking, how do we use the scorecard as an analysis tool to guide decision making, as opposed to just proving to management that what we want is the best thing?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say a lot of that is, ultimately this scorecard is based on hard metrics within an environment, right? So it's about the connectivity, how over-provisioned something is, how much storage it has. Now, certainly you can manipulate that based on the tags that are applied and how those things are weighted, but I would fully expect that to be a discussion, right? And the point of some of these graphs is to help you understand how much are those scores impacting the total ranking, right? So we can see that a lot of the scoring is coming from, in large storage footprint, the R score, the low device. That's what's going to drive my ranking the most as I kind of move down the stack here versus, except for this -1 million. So I think there's a discussion to be had around it, right? And saying, here's the weights, here's how we said that this was more valuable than something else. And ultimately, that's a discussion that has to be had. But I think the key is, this is built on hard numbers, not on, we just finished our tea and now we're looking at the leaves on the bottom of the cup. I suppose hopefully I answered that question sufficiently. What else you got for me, bro?
Someone is asking, can I load templates when I create an assessment, and how do I communicate what I want to have propagated across my assessments?
Yeah, great question. So especially if you get in here, you save a template, so you like it the way you have it laid out, then just email our support team and say, hey, we created this template and would like it to be available in the standard templates section. So just put that ask out. Now, if you have custom tags as a part of that template, we'll have to have a little discussion around, are those things that we automate? So it's possible that your tags are something that we'll just take in and just spray out and that'll just be available. Or in some cases, it may be something that manually needs to be done. And if the tags aren't there, then it just won't load as a part of the template. So that's something to consider. But ultimately, the short answer is if you have a template, you like it, email our support team and we will work with you on getting that into the standard templates section.
And one more question. Someone is, so it's really a two-parter. What do the Ks mean? And then what is the thinking behind the weighting? Can you elaborate a little bit more on how that was decided?
Yeah, so the Ks here means thousands, right? Kilo, whereas the M means a million. Just a summary here. The thinking behind the weighting is really, a lot of the feedback we got on the initial scorecard we put out was that it wasn't two-dimensional. And ultimately, it's hard to, as a, and just think about trying to score a portfolio. And if I said to you, how much do you want me to value low connectivity? Or how much do you want me to value devices being over-provisioned? And it's like, well, I don't know, Zane, 1,000? And it's like, what the important thing is here is instead, is low connectivity more important to you than over-provisioning? Yes or no? Yeah, it is. Okay. And so what pairwise ranking creates for you is that matrix. Now, we built it in this way because ultimately, once you have criteria, a lot of criteria, that matrix, it's sort of a 2 to the n. It's an exponential curve in terms of the amount of questions you're going to have to answer to complete that sort of, is this more important or is this more important? And so here you can kind of set the relative importance of one category to another category. And so what that does is provides you kind of a reference point, right? Whereas beforehand, if I'm just like, well, how much monopoly money do you want me to assign to a particular category? Well, that's a lot harder of an exercise versus, is this more important or less important? And to what degree with these two categories? Any other questions, Brooke?
Yes, so you sort of touched on this as you were speaking, so I think we sort of answered it. But to elaborate on that previous question about the weighting, they're asking, is it purely subjective or is there any criteria back of the numbering scheme? So I don't know if you want to speak to that a little bit. I feel like it's a little bit of both, maybe?
Yeah, so I mean, how the numbers get created, there is obviously, math, but ultimately, how important one thing is to you than another is ultimately subjective, right? I mean, when I was with the guys at Eastman Chemical, storage was really important to them. They were running out of it. They didn't want to have to buy more. But if I move to another customer, a location, so a server is sitting in a particular data center matters to them because that data center's lease is running out. And so ultimately the weight of each of these categories is very subjective based on the use case of a customer. And so especially as we kind of move into the standard templates world, our professional services team is working on a couple different flavors of those. So, hey, if I have a location, a data center I'm trying to get out of, and I need to prioritize everything that's in that data center and things that are going to be quick to move, then that's what I'm going to need to do. And so we're thinking about trying to put kind of use case centric standard templates in that will allow for some of that subjectivity because it's very use case oriented.
Great. And I will shoot you over one more question and then we can move on. It's really
All right,
two
sounds
questions
good.
related to reserved instances.
You guys with these two questions.
One person is asking, in the IaaS cloud pricing section for my environment, it only gives me the prices for 400 servers, but I have 550. Is it because not enough information was collected for those 150 servers?
It could be there, it could be, I don't know how licensing's working. I think it's also important to note that for any of you, and I didn't explain this, for any of you who have existing assessments, you're probably going to go to this page and look for these reserved instances and you're not going to find them. What you need to do is come up here and click this green button to recalculate cloud pricing. And so certainly if you only have not the right number of servers in this table, it could be that when this was last run, those servers weren't available, they weren't licensed, all numbers of reasons. Typically, if we have them and they are licensed, they will show up in here. Even if we don't have usage information on them, they will come back and say not enough information on insufficient data, I think is what it says on the usage, but we'll still have the inventory. Now, if we don't have inventory data, then obviously we can't price them or do any kind of instance matching. But generally, it's probably something to do with licensing or when the report was last calculated. Okay, so what I want to jump to now is kind of the last feature that's a part of Cedar is the enhanced geolocation. And honestly, I really like the other features. I'm super stoked about them. This, in my opinion, is one of the funner ones. Maps are fun, but I was really proud of the team on the UI and the interface here and how to play around with it. And so as you look at the map, the big change from the old geolocations is now every connection we've seen is now going to be on the map, whereas before we were limiting it to the last week. So now you can explore kind of the entirety of the data set. You can filter across it. You can filter certain stacks or locations. We put a little total here so you can see if, as you apply filters, if that total's changing, because sometimes you can get so much on the map, it can be hard to know whether or not your filter was applied. And so, for example, what I might do is go down here and let's look at this guy here in Fleetwood, Pennsylvania. So this is going to load up, and so each of these pins represents a location. So in the old version, each pin represented an IP address. Now each pin represents a latitude and a longitude, and then we're grouping the number of IPs into that location. The reason we did that is, again, for performance. Dropping millions of pins on a map in the browser was just non-performant, and that's why we were limiting it to a week prior. But now once you click a location, it's going to tell you that location. You're going to have this little blue button here where you can click that, and that will go straight to the flow data that corresponds to that particular location. So you can get source depth, ports, protocols. I mean, here's all the real chunky data you can get into should you want to as you explore the data set. The next table here, excuse me. Okay, so I'm back. The next table here is going to show you, here are the internal IPs in your environment that we saw talking to this location. And so the important thing here is to recognize the relative position of these arrows to the map. Okay, so these IPs are talking outbound to Fleetwood, Pennsylvania here. And so you can see that direction. Which direction is the map talking in? Is my environment talking out? We can look and see what those top protocols are. We can see the threat levels of those associated servers that are talking to those locations, as well as any stack or location that they may be a part of. And so this is just a much better way. I would encourage all of you to just get in here, play around with it. It's just kind of fun, I think, to see kind of how we are kind of talking to the world and the apps that are doing it, and the protocols that we're using. So, hey, my invoice system is talking to Cesano Bosconi in Lombardia, Italy. Forgive my poor Italian impression. And so it's just a very interesting way to kind of see the data, explore it, and realize how that's impacting the environment. I think the big use case to take away from this too, especially for those of you who are more interested in cloud, is let's say I'm going to filter to my stacks and I'm interested in, you know what, my scorecard said Tableau is the best thing to move. Okay, let's apply that filter. Well, Tableau's a bad example. Let's pick something else. Let's try ERP maybe. Let's do CRM. Maybe that'll be. All right, there we go. So hey, this is my CRM, and this is where my salespeople are located to talk to it, or maybe they've been on business travel. But now, as I think about, okay, well, what region in the world, if I'm going to migrate my CRM, where are my users? What region should I locate into to have the lowest amount of latency? And so as I look at the map here, it's like, it's probably US East. You know, as we look, you know, you kind of have a lot of people over here. You got some folks over in Europe. See 5 IPs there. One. We got 8 locations here. And so this will just help better think about, where are my users in the world? How do I need to organize and select what region I should go into? Yeah, certainly cost is worth considering, but also we need to think about latency. And so you can do some of that analysis on the map here. Okay. Brooke, are there any more questions I can answer for folks?
There are a couple. I think we'll let you answer one of them, and then we'll turn it over to Lauren, just in the interest of time.
Yeah, sounds
someone
great.
is asking, when will the template scorecards for certain types of customers be released?
Good question. I don't know. I'm, you know, hopefully here in the next month or so. A lot depends on, you know, our team is, you know, probably only a few weeks ago got access to this feature when we kind of pushed it into beta. And so we want to be sure that we're having time to kind of kick it around and play with it, be sure we like how it's tweaked and weighted. So some of that is more just, we got to get some kind of in-field experience. Once our team is kind of done with that, then we'll kind of take it on from development to roll that out to the rest of the platform. But great question. Okay, so with that, I appreciate everybody hopping on and listening to me today. Lauren is going to talk a little bit about our customer success team, who are just phenomenal. Our support team, our entire kind of post-sales team, our pre-sales team is wonderful too, so don't get me wrong. But they're really great. If you haven't got the pleasure of talking to them, please do. You know, we entirely recognize that, you know, your success is our success. We we really believe in that, and I want everybody to be getting good value out of the platform. We put a lot of our heart and soul into this, and we want to be sure that comes through, and you feel some of that love. So I'm going to turn it over back to Brooke and Lauren. And again, thanks everybody for attending and checking out what we've had for you.
All right, thank you, Zane. And thanks again, everyone, for joining the call today. My name is Lauren, and as Zane mentioned, I'm a Customer Success Manager here at RISC Networks, now Flexera. A goal for our entire team is to ensure that every single one of our customers and partners have the resources and support necessary to be successful with the platform. So we wanted to take just a few minutes today during the presentation to share an overview of how we can help you achieve that success. So this slide is just a general overview of the primary elements we focus on to help support our customers. And this may include a broader involvement of the RISC Networks and Flexera teams, such as our technical support, engineers, and professional services team. But customer success really is here as your primary point of contact to make sure you have the guidance to connect you to the teams and resources that you need. So initially, our first step when we're working with you on a new assessment is to understand your goals and priorities for utilizing the RISC Networks platform, what you want to accomplish, as well as any important milestones and timelines we should be aware of along the way. And as you're getting started in using the platform, we want to make sure that you're able to accomplish the first steps of discovery and mapping your IT environment as efficiently as possible. And really the aim here is to reduce your time to value in leveraging the reports, dashboards, and intelligence available within the platform after these first steps of discovering and mapping your environment are completed. We're also here to help enable additional users and broader teams to use the platform and provide guidance on how you and the rest of your organization can use the data and analysis available for specific projects and priorities, especially as new reports and features are released, like the ones that Zane presented today. The new features included in all of our quarterly releases are very much influenced by partners and customers, their requests and feedback of updates that you'd like to receive in the platform. So we're always looking to gather that feedback and understand what would be most helpful for you. Understand the additional features in the platform, what will save you time, and then as a customer success team, we help funnel that back to the product team to make those changes. As we have subsequent product releases throughout the year, we also want to be sure that we're proactively keeping you up to speed on these new features and platform updates so that you're able to leverage them and see the full value of the platform as it continues to evolve. As Zane mentioned, everyone here on the RISC Networks Flexera team is dedicated to your success in using the platform. We're looking forward to working with you. You can reach us at customersuccess@riscnetworks.com if there are any questions that we can help you with. So that's everything from me, Brooke. Back over to you.
Thanks, Lauren. And as she was saying, I can go to the next slide. You can always reach out to customer success at riscnetworks.com if you need help on an existing engagement. We also have expert on-demand call-in sessions on Tuesdays and Thursdays. You can find that on our website and sign up. It's a great time if you just have a random question or you're trying to work through a problem to identify that and talk with one of our engineers. And that's an hour every Tuesday and Thursday, so definitely sign up for that. Zane, we have a few more questions, so if you don't mind, I will ask you those.
Okay, yeah, sure.
So someone is asking if there's a way to see the CVEs flagged for the threats that are identified.
Yes, absolutely. So if you go to, if you don't mind me giving me control back to the screen there, Brooke. So this is related, so the question is related to our threats module. Let me get the GoToMeeting out of the way here. So if I go down to the threats page, at the bottom of the threats page, you're going to have any kind of software vulnerabilities. If I haven't timed out here. Come on, baby. Here we go. And so let's let this page load. Also, by the way, the geolocation improvements also apply to this map as well. We don't have any high-risk areas here in my demo, so I can't kind of show some of that functionality. But as I kind of move down, here you'll have the software vulnerabilities, and we'll list the CVE ID here as a part of that vulnerability, which you can Google. So as we kind of go here, you can Google that, and that will drop you on the CVE page if you needed to look up any other specific information about that vulnerability. That's why we provide that linkage there to use. Any other questions, Brooke?
Thank you, Zane. Someone is asking, what is the path to navigate to the reserved instances page?
Yeah, good question. You go up here to Add Intelligence, and then we're going to jump down to IaaS Cloud Pricing right here. And in the email that went out about the Cedar release, we do have there's a to-access part of that. So feel free, if you guys don't remember what I said today or want to look it up, just go back to that email. Should have went out to all of our users that'll explain how to access any of these features. But that's where the navigation is. It'll land you on this page here. And just be sure, if you don't have reserved instances in your demo or your environment, you need to come in and recalculate cloud pricing, and that's what's going to make those. That would be like if new pricing became available. It's basically showing you here's what it was as of June 12th. And so just if your date's kind of backdated, you're not going to have those new regions yet, and you just need to recalculate.
Thank you. So as you were just saying, if someone can't see the reserved instances pricing even after they hit calculate, they should just reach out to someone on their team?
Yeah, absolutely. Reach out to our support team. If you're doing that in one of our demos, that's a different animal because our demos are backed by kind of this segregated data set so those might be problematic for working on kind of updating those. But especially any live assessment or any assessment with like real data that's not a demo, should have that available. If it doesn't, please enter a support ticket and we'll jump right on it.
We don't have any more questions, but just a quick kudos that came through. Someone is saying, by the way, I love geolocation. It told me my server was being attacked from China. The public IP was supposed to have been removed, but it was not. So yeah. Great example of how to use that.
Yeah, that's very cool. Very cool.
Well, that is all of our questions. If you think of some after, feel free to reach out to Lauren's team, customer success at risknetworks.com, or any contacts you have here for sure. And so with that, we will tear it down. And thank you again, everyone, for joining. We really appreciate it. And we hope you're as excited as we are.
Thank you.
Thank you.